in court, so I'm wearing the sunglasses. It's not my first visit here at this cemetery. I came here with Tom, Gina, Beth Ann, Hillary a few years ago. Tom gave us a tour. We've referred to this as his living funeral. We walked around the grounds, saw where the grave sites, saw where people commemorated their loved ones with flowers on the grave and other items of importance. While on this tour with Tom, we came upon a grave site with an Oakland Raiders cap, an empty 40 of Budweiser, and an empty bottle of Jack Daniels. So my question is, how do I leave an Ohio State hat, a bottle of wine watered down with some juice, and a pizza box from Old Chicago Firehouse up there? You have to rectify that. Tom Deaton was my father-in-law. He's one of several I've had and still have, but I'm done collecting them. Recently, Gina was having a discussion with Rylan about marriage and told him she was a fan of marriage. Rylan replied with something like, "Is that why you've got two of them? Is that why you're collecting them?" This is exactly the kind of joke Tom would be proud of. My relationship with Tom was not complicated. It was based on jokes, college football, jokes about college football, history and politics in the military, jokes about history, politics in the military, jokes and comments about Gina and our family, lots of jokes about Gina and our kids, countless jokes about wearing Depends. This one came back to haunt us all. Last year, as Tom's memory was fading, he and Linda came by for our house for a walk. These walks were fairly consistent early on in his decline, and sadly, they were limited over the last year. But on this one visit, Tom had a memory blip and told Gina to, quote, "divorce that asshole." Unquote. Most sons-in-laws would probably be appalled by a comment to their wife like this, but I just assumed Tom was just reminding Gina of the sage advice he had given her years before we met. The one thing I loved about Tom was how great he was at taking a joke. It's what I started to miss the most about his memory, about him as his memory faded and our interactions changed. I don't remember intentionally making Tom the butt of a joke, but I always expected him to laugh and encourage my ridiculous comments. If Tom knew his passing would end up in me and others here having an open mic at his service, he might have given that advice of divorce that asshole to Gina, but intended for me. I knew Tom was in the military. The only times I saw Tom get choked up was discussing the military and his experiences he knew from his friends and acquaintances, or when discussing his dogs. In fact, very recently I came over to see Tom, and as I walked in, he gave a chuckle and a smile, and I thought, Tom is happy to see me today, until he said, "Oh, that's Smokey," and reached down to pet his dog. Tom and I talked about his experience in the Navy, but it's either his storytelling or my memory, but I could have sworn he was a cook on a Navy ship. I've since found out he was a radar technician and not a cook. Either way, when loved ones pass, we often like to lionize them. So for Tom, just go watch Steven Seagal's movie, which is about Tom's Navy experience, called Under Siege. It's where a Navy cook saves the world, and I swear to God, I watched this last night in Tom's honor. Here's some random memories about Tom. Wasabi. Hillary already mentioned this, but I wasn't there, but I've heard this so much. I tell the story myself to other people, where Tom once ate a thing of wasabi thinking it was guacamole or an avocado. The story is wonderful to me because my grandpa once filled his plate of beans with La Victoria hot sauce thinking it was ketchup, probably to the same result. His hats, his NRA hat, his military hats. Tom would wear his NRA hat with pride, even to some family events. Maybe this upset some people, but I dare any of you to see a man older than yourself wearing one now and not think of Tom. Stories. Tom told me the same stories multiple times, over and over. I often think this is a Deaton quirk. Hey, Gina. First I was annoyed by hearing the same stories. Then I became a bit numbed, at least I knew the ending was coming. But now I'm glad he repeated those stories. I can remember the stories easily now because I heard them so many times. Here's a message for everyone today, and as Tom might have said, you have 3 possible outcomes. 1, if Tom did something in your life that maybe bothered you, and we've all done something like that, then now is your chance to make sure you don't repeat those perceived mistakes in your own life. Make amends to your family, friends, and perhaps even strangers. 2, if Tom impacted your life in a positive way, Now is a chance to pay those positive aspects forward and give that gift to family members and friends in your life. And third, learn to tell a joke. Take a joke or be the joke. But like Tom, just be a part of a good laugh. As I was thinking of what to say today, I was reminded of a song I liked when I was in college, and it has impacted me greatly as a husband and father. I listened to this song a few times this morning. The title is really all you need to know. The lyrics are a bit religious, but the significance is important to everyone here because when you start to think about your own mortality, you start to think about what impact you've had while you were alive. The title is A Man You Would Write About. Here are some of the lyrics, and I'll try not to get choked up about this. From the time began, you always chose a man to lead the way safely by your way, to be the voice and echo what you say. Like David or Abraham, your word is full of such men. And if the Bible has no closing page and still was being written to this day, I want to be a man that you would write about. 1,000 years from now, that they could read about. Your servant of choice, in whom you found favor, a man who heard your voice. Generations away, it's my prayer that they will look back and say, oh, to have that kind of faith and love, what a solid man of God he was. I want to be a man that you would write about. 1,000 years from now, that they would read about. Your servant of choice, in whom you found favor, a man who heard your voice. Whether the religious aspect of that song hits you or not, it doesn't matter. The reality is, I'm proud to be here today to say thanks to Tom for giving me Gina and this entire family. Tom and Linda took me in, Mason and Avery, like we had been there since day one, like we were one of Tom's cherished dogs. Tom will be missed. Tom was a loved man. Tom was a man I wrote jokes about.